everyone, thank you for joining me. Welcome to day 10 of my 12 days of Crafty Christmas. Today I'm going to be creating a card with the Fragrant Forest stamp set. So I'm going to be using this for my image, and then I'm going to be bringing in a sentiment from the Brightest Glow stamp set. So I'm going to start by creating my card base. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and the cardstock that I'm using today is Basic White, Thick Basic White, and Night of Navy. So I'm going to start with my standard sized card base, so half a sheet of A4 scored at 10.5. Like so. Oh, move my cutting blade out of the way, there we go. So scored at 10.5, and then I'm going to cut a white panel that is 10 centimetres wide. I'm not worried about the height of that. And then I'm going to bring in my Night of Navy, and I'm going to cut a panel that is 10 centimetres by 5mm short of my standard card base. So I'm doing 3.5 centimetres by 10, but just step down half a centimetre if you're using centimetre measurements, or 1/4 of an inch if you're using inches. So you should have a white panel and a Night of Navy panel that are the same width. Okay, so I'm going to start off with some heat embossing. So I'm going to start with my sentiment, and the sentiment that I have chosen is the Merry Christmas sentiment, and I'm actually going to be heat embossing that. So I'm going to bring in my powder tool, embossing buddy, whatever you'd like to call it, just over my project, and then I've got my Versamark ink. I'm going to stamp my Merry Christmas sort of quite close to the top on the left hand side, and then I'm going to be heat embossing in gold. So bring in my trusty embossing tray, sprinkle it on, and then tap it off, and then I'm going to heat up my heat tool, ready to melt that embossing powder. And that's nice and hot. I'm going to run that over until that embossing powder is nice and smooth and melted. So as always, just making sure that I have added heat to my project on both sides just to prevent that warping. It should start to go any second now. There we go. Okay. What's that? So there's a slight bit of warping, but I'm not too worried about that when I stick that down to my project. I'm going to be using dimensional, so that's going to help with that. Okay, so the next step, so I've got a kind of slightly gross looking block here, and I have got my Whisper White pigment ink. I'm just going to open this up, and I'm going to stamp my acrylic, bring my acrylic block into that pad just to pick up some of that pigment ink. And then I'm going to grab a water brush, and I'm going to add a little bit of water and give that a little mix, and then I'm going to do some flicking. The idea is that I'm trying to kind of create some snowfall. So you can do as much or as little as you like. I'm going to do quite a bit of that kind of thinned down and then I'm going to flick on my finger, which is going to give me some larger splodges. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think that looks suitably snowy. So move those out of the way. Okay, then I'm going to set that to one side to dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to stamp my image. So I'm going to bring in my white panel that's 10 centimetres wide, and then I've mounted my stamp onto the largest acrylic block. This is an F block, and because it's a large image, I'm going to bring my ink pad to my stamp. The colour that I'm using today is Shaded Spruce, and I'm going to give this a really good ink up all the way across. And then when I'm happy that that's well inked, I'm going to bring my piece of cardstock. Now this is where it's a little bit risky, and you just have to kind of, once you start, you just have to go with it. So I'm just going to place my cardstock down, and then to make sure that I get a nice good impression all the way across, I'm going to bring in another block, and I'm just going to hold that in place with my fingers, and I'm going to run the block over that cardstock. And I'm going to take my time doing it. Sorry for the wobble, because I want to make sure that I get a nice good clear impression. And then I'm going to peel it away. Ooh, it's always a bit risky. There we go. So now we have our stamped image. And then I'm going to grab my scissors, and I'm going to cut away this top section. So I'm going to wiggle around here and then down into this gap and across, like so. You'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm just giving my paper a wiggle. So I'm going to cut the bulk away, and then I'm going to come back and neaten up any of those edges that I need to neaten. So let's cut that whole section away. And then I'm going to come in all the way around. It's really, and you don't have to be too precise. I just want to kind of it to look like I've cut kind of around the trees. It gives a really nice effect on the finished card. So I think as well, because we're kind of going for a snowy scene, it doesn't matter too much that it looks like there's some snow on top of the trees. Okay, so I'm happy with that, I think. Just maybe a bit more of a wiggle along that tree there. That's better. Okay, and then I'm going to just trim off that very bottom piece. So bring my trimmer in. And I'm not trimming off a specific amount, it's just so that there isn't a white gap along the bottom. There we go. And then I'm going to bring back my snowy background. So this is what that's going to look like. So my stamped piece I'm going to stick on with my liquid glue. And then I'm going to attach my Night of Navy panel to my card base with dimensionals. nicely lined up. There we go. And then some dimensionals on the back. The birds are very noisy this afternoon. I'm sorry if you can hear that and it's distracting. There we go. Oops. So just take the backs off my dimensionals and then we can adhere it to the front of our card. You could add some embellishments if you wanted to. Maybe some of the black and white, I can't remember what it's called, the like gingham ribbon would look nice. Or maybe some of the gold twine. So I'm aiming for a nice even border. It's a little bit wonky, but I don't think it really matters. There we go, that's our card for today. So it's actually really simple. It's really simple to make, nice and quick and easy, but I think it looks really effective and like a lot of time has been spent. So yeah, this is definitely one that I'm going to be sending out several of this year. Thank you so much for joining me. I do hope that you'll come back and see me again tomorrow for day 11. Thanks again. Take care. Bye.